is transfer talk. Saudi Arabia Pro League team Al Ittihad are prepared to offer over £100 million for Liverpool winger Mo Salah. But with a week to go in the window, the message is clear from the manager Jurgen Klopp.
We don't have another Mo Salah is Liverpool player. There's nothing there. If there would be something, the answer would be no.
Loads to discuss on that. Manchester United have injury concerns. Luke Shaw will be missing their next few games. Will they be forced into the market to sign a left-back? And Romelu Lukaku could be allowed to leave Chelsea on loan. The latest on his future coming up this hour. We start at Liverpool as manager Jurgen Klopp today insisted the club hasn't received an offer for Mo Salah, despite interest from Al Ittihad, who are prepared to do everything they can to sign him and even offer over £100 million for him. This is what he told us earlier this morning.
It's always a bit difficult to talk about media stories. So because there's nothing to talk about from our point of view. We don't have another Mo Salah is Liverpool player. Obviously, for all the things we do, essential will be. So, yeah, there's nothing there. If there would be something, the answer would be no. But that's it, pretty much.
So he's not for sale, but are there any concerns? What concerns do you have that, given the speculation, given the figures that are being talked about, it could be unsettled?
My life philosophy, or one part of my life, is I think about the problem when I have it. That's enough time then, because there is absolutely nothing in the moment. So when if there's something coming up that I don't think or I don't know, yeah, then I can think about that. But I said already, it's if there would be something, it would be a no.
It's an ever-changing situation, isn't it, in terms of the way that the Saudi Pro League, money's always talked and talked very loudly in football, but this is they're playing with a different deck of cards to anybody else, even perceived footballing world powers.
I understand 100%. That's not comfortable. It's not cool for us. That's how it is. But so if we go and want a player from, I don't know, Wigan Athletic, so we go there and they tell us the price and we pay it, probably. But it depends a little bit, not only us, big clubs in the world of football, stuff like this. In Bundesliga like that, if Bayern comes, if Tottenham comes, then Bielefeld, Mainz cannot really react on that. So that's the way it goes.
So Jurgen Klopp, very calm, very relaxed. Salah not for sale, no offers anyway. Was that a predictable reaction from Jurgen Klopp, Harriet?
He was quite decisive, wasn't he? He really decided to shut it down. Very smiley, probably a lot happier than a lot of Liverpool fans when the news was coming out last night. But he did say very clearly, even if there was something and there was an offer to be put in, the answer would be no. But he described him there, Mo Salah, as an essential player. He is absolutely essential to everything that Liverpool have done for the past few seasons and everything they're going to be looking to do for the season ahead. It's not just his goal output. He's never dropped below 23 goals in all competitions. His consistency in that respect is unbelievable. But it's everything else he does. It's the link-up play. It's the way he sets standards in the training ground. It's the way he makes players around him better. The assist stats that he gets. The way that he just continuously sets high standards for himself and everyone around him. And so for Jurgen Klopp, he is saying we've already lost a few players in this window who are big characters. Captain Jordan Henderson, vice-captain James Milner, a few other midfielders in there as well, maybe some that they didn't expect to lose, like Fabinho. They're thinking we cannot lose a really key and vital player in this window with only 7 days left. The counter's not up there anymore, but I'm pretty sure it's 7 days left in this transfer window. So it's you know, even if you had, I said it on this morning show, a month to replace him, who is replacing Mo Salah's output in terms of his goals, his assists, everything else I've just spoken about? Jurgen Klopp describes him as essential. Liverpool fans will feel the exact same. He's got to stay at Liverpool, I think.
So Liverpool saying Mo Salah is not for sale. We heard that earlier in the window. Tottenham saying Harry Kane is not for sale. We know what happened there. Do you think Liverpool could change their minds?
Money talks in football. We've seen that more than ever in this transfer window. But Harriet's completely right in terms of it's just the time that the counter's up there now.
Oh,
there's 7 days to go. And I don't think that there's enough time for Liverpool to get a replacement. I don't think they can get a replacement for Mo Salah. But what you can refer to, if you want to make an argument for this move happening, is that Liverpool have done business with Saudi clubs already in this window. Fabinho, Firmino and Jordan Henderson, who are crucial players. Mo Salah's on a different level to those players. He's one of Liverpool's greatest ever players. 7 days left in the transfer window. I'll find it impossible to believe that Liverpool would let Mo Salah go. And Jurgen Klopp was pretty defiant in his press conference.
Also, I think what we've maybe not spoke about so much, and this is actually probably in testament to Mo Salah, is him becoming agitated and changing his mind and maybe giving Liverpool a problem. I think that just goes to show the type of character that he is, the type of perception that people see him as a footballer, the type of character he is. I don't think any of us are sitting here thinking that he's about to go knock on the door, make it difficult for Jurgen Klopp and maybe say, I want to leave at the last minute. I can't see that happening, in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of other fans can't. Kwaku did say, and I was talking about earlier, you know, and maybe posing the question, though, how high do El Attiyad go in terms of price? What is something that is maybe an unthinkable amount of money that Liverpool just cannot... Too good to turn down.
And we've seen them be persistent, haven't we?
Is it 300? Is it... You know, unless it's something staggering like that, but it still takes the player to have to say, I want to leave. And right now, Jurgen Klopp's very comfortable in his position that actually, I don't have an issue here because it's Salah's not asking to leave and there's no bid.
No, and he was asked if Salah was committed this morning, and Jurgen Klopp replied 100%. He's got that drive for success in it every single year. We see that in him, not just for individual records, but also from a team perspective. And that's why, as well, his mentality, I'm not sure he is the type of character that would start angling for a move away or pushing for that or upsetting things in camp. He likes to make sure that everything is stable. He likes to create that stable environment for himself so that he can thrive in a mental and physical aspect because of all the things I touched on earlier, how high he sets the standard for himself. So I just can't imagine him causing those sorts of problems with only a few days left in the transfer window. Don't
expect the story to go away, though. They're going to be hyper-aggressive in their pursuit of Mo Salah because let's not get it twisted. He is one of the most high-profile footballers in the world. He's the most high-profile Muslim footballer in the world. It makes sense both on the pitch and off the pitch for him to eventually go to Saudi Arabia, but I just don't know if it'll be in this window.
He is so key to this Liverpool side, isn't he, Harriet? What do his numbers say?
Yeah, he absolutely is incredibly key to everything we do, and hopefully in the screen in a moment you'll be able to see some of his stats from last season, the Premier League 22-23, and this is actually a season where a lot of Liverpool fans maybe would admit, and Mo Salah himself would admit, that he wasn't quite at the top of his game, but he still ranked first for games, 19 goals in the Premier League, 12 assists, showing how well he links up play and manages to bring in other people as well. Second for chances created, first for shots, first for dribbles completed. That 38 games for me is one of the key points to what makes Mo Salah so good, because his consistent availability season after season. Can you remember Mo Salah? I don't want to jinx it now, being out with an injury for even more than a week.
There's no wood to touch.
There's no wood to touch. I touched my head instead. But he is always available because he keeps himself so fit. And that's why I have no doubts that even though he is over 30 now, that he's still got 3-4 years left at the top of his game. If he wants this move, maybe he thinks he can do this in a few years. But right now, he'll still be eyeing up Premier League titles, hopefully Champions League titles when Liverpool are back in that competition. He'll still be thinking, I've got a lot left at the top of the game and I want to hopefully stay in the Premier League. Although I do understand the draw for him to leave and all the financial things which we've spoken about.
I know he's not for sale. I know he's not. But say if it wasn't Saudi Arabia, because we saw there was a price for Harry Kane at the age that he is, you know, still a fantastic player. Just out of curiosity, what is Mo Salah worth in today's market? When you see what other players have gone for, when you see Harry Kane going to Bayern Munich for in excess of, you know, pretty much £100 million, that's euros, how much is he worth?
It's about their value, isn't it, to the club, though, isn't it? So for you, even in terms of the current market, you can think about the strikers that are available. I mean, Manchester United just signed an unproven striker for a large fee. And I just think his worth and his value to Liverpool mean that if they were selling into a club in Saudi Arabia, they would be asking for upwards of 100 million. I think way upwards of that.
I have a tweet here, actually, from Paul Hansen, who says Salah is worth 100 million per season to Liverpool in regards to both his contribution to winning games and his commercial value to the club. So with 2 years left, it'd be fair to say he's worth 200 million. Well, there we go.
Okay.
There we go.
That's the price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Had a listening. That's the price.
200 million. Right, away from Liverpool now and to Arsenal, who's waiting to speak to us is our reporter, Gary Cottrell. Afternoon, Gary. You'll be speaking to Mikel Arteta later on today. I'm sure he'll be asked about potential outgoings, won't he?
Yeah, we'll be speaking to Mikel a little bit later. It's a shame in a way we won't be speaking to Edu because he's the one down here at the Arsenal training ground who's still very busy in this transfer window with a week to go. Not particularly on looking for players to bring in. Arsenal did good business, didn't they, very early, nice and early in this window. Those players, apart from Timber, of course, who's injured, already settling in nicely. But it's players out, and we know that two in particular are very close now to being announced as leaving Arsenal. One is Flo Balogun, Flo as he's known down here, Balogun. It looks like he's going to France, French league of course, where he spent last season really well at Rennes, scoring for fun. Monaco, a permanent deal for him. And also Kieran Toney, a loan deal going to Spain to Real Sociedad. We'll ask Mikel Arteta if there's any more updates, particularly on those two. But there are another 5 or 6 players who could well be finding themselves leaving Arsenal in the next 7 days. Players who are on the fringes of the first team squad. Some of them aren't even training with the first team squad down here at the training ground. Some of them the club are actively trying to find new clubs for. Some of them they'll listen to offers for. Others might well stay if nothing better for them and the club comes in. There's a big list of players who fall into that category. Obviously near the top of that list, Nicolas Pepe. Again, it just hasn't worked out for him here, has it? Nuno Tavares, Albert Sambi Lokonga, Rob Holding's finding himself probably going further down the central defensive pecking order, and Cedric Suarez. So yeah, interesting times at Arsenal in terms of leaving this place rather than potentially coming in.
Gary, thank you very much. Look forward to hearing from Mikel Arteta later. Well, Gary mentioned it there. Monaco have a broad agreement with Arsenal over the signing of striker Folarin Balogun. The fee is understood to be in the region of £40 million. He could travel to Monaco over the weekend for a medical once all finalised. Flex, he hasn't been included in a Premier League squad this season. Maybe surprising considering Jesus is out injured. Is this the right move for Flo, as he's known as? Flo?
Yeah, Flo. Yeah, Torre Andre Flo. I think it's going to be a fantastic move. One for the player because he's going to get consistent football, which he's been so hungry for. Proven himself last year at Reims, who finished 11th in the league. 21 goals for him in the league. And yes, he was behind the likes of Jonathan David, Alex Lacazette, and of course, Mbappe. Not some big names. But for him to go there as a young player looking to hone his craft at senior level and get that amount of goals shows that he's got talent. And he's switched allegiance as well to the United States national team as well and did well for them in the Gold Cup. So I think it's a fantastic situation for him and for Arsenal. And what I found staggering was just looking at the reported fee, £40 million to Monaco. And I was looking at that in terms of some of the Arsenal sales. And he could be one of the biggest Arsenal sales there. You look at the likes of Thierry Henry, who went to Barcelona. You look at the likes of Cesc Fabregas. You look at Alexis Sanchez, Robin van Persie to Manchester United. And all of a sudden, you're going to get a young player in Folarin Balogun who has not even played a first-team game in the Premier League. Leaving for £40 million is going to top that list. So, fantastic business for Arsenal.
Well, we've got some news reaching us now from Manchester United that Marseille are pushing to sign defender Eric Bailly. No official bid as of yet, but they are expected to formalise their interest in the coming days. Personal terms not expected to be a problem. Bailly has 1 year left on his United contract. United have the option to extend for a further year. Bailly doesn't appear to be part of Eric Ten Hag's long-term plans. So was this the right decision, Flex?
Absolutely. It's come to an end at Manchester United for Eric Bailly. He'll be known for his eccentric style of play, aggressive style of play for sure. He's definitely an entertainer, I give him that, and a real warrior. But in terms of injuries and not being available, it hasn't gone the best at Manchester United. And since Eric Ten Hag's come in, like I said, he's not been part of his plans at all. So that move would make a lot of sense for him and the club.
Right, time now for a short break. Next, though, we're live to Tottenham. Will they buy a striker with a week to go? Plus, we'll look at Manchester United's defensive options with Luke Shaw out injured. Welcome back to Transfer Talk. Let's get to Tottenham now. Our reporter James Savundra will be speaking to Ange Postecoglou later on today. He joins us now live from Tottenham Hotspur's training ground. Afternoon, James. Good to see you. What's the club's priority over the next week then?
Hi Alex, good afternoon to you. Yes, Ange Postecoglou has a huge first-team squad at the moment, so unfortunately Spurs fans, the focus will be on outgoings rather than incomings over the next few days. He admitted himself last week that having such a bloated squad is having an effect on training and the players themselves. Now, Spurs have more than 30 players over the age of 21. Only 25 of those can be registered in their Premier League squad, so it means that players either need to leave or risk missing out on being part of that squad this season. So in the last week or so, there haven't been the major outgoings that Spurs would have hoped for. So it does look like incomings at this point are unlikely. And there is a long list of players that are available for transfer at the moment when it comes to Spurs. Hugo Lloris said at the end of last season that he was looking for a new era, a new start. Well, he's training with the first team still, and he has turned down the opportunity to join Lazio. Sergio Reguilon and Tanguy Ndombele, they're available for transfer, and the club will listen to offers for Japhet Tanganga, Eric for a loan or a transfer. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, he's open to leaving the club, but the club will sell him only if the right offer comes in. And another player as well on that list is Brian Hill, though he's out at the moment. He had groin surgery earlier on this month, so that may prevent him from leaving the club in the next 7 days. I think there's a real feeling of optimism and positivity around the Spurs fan base at the moment, despite the fact they've lost Harry Kane, because it's been such an encouraging start to this new season. But at the moment, it looks like major incomings are unlikely, while Spurs still look to shift a lot of players who simply aren't going to be part of Ange Postecoglou's plans this season. We'll be speaking to the head coach at his pre-match press conference around 1 p.m, and we'll bring that to you later this afternoon on Sky Sports News.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much, James. Well, to Manchester United and Marseille are pushing to sign defender Eric Bailly. No official bid as of yet, but they are expected to formalise their interest in the coming days. Meanwhile, Luke Shaw has sustained an injury which will rule him out of forthcoming games. Flex, Luke Shaw's injury, bad news.
It is bad news. It's not great at Manchester United at the minute in terms of an indifferent start, trying to bring players in but needing to be able to sell players for that to happen. And it's a real blow for Luke Shaw because, on a personal, I think this has been a really good period for him under Erik ten Hag, injury-free, and managed to get some good form behind him on a personal. So it is definitely a big issue.
Do you think it's essential they bring someone in to replace him, or can they look at options in-house?
Well, that's what we're going to look at right now, actually, because I would like to see this as a situation where Manchester United can look in-house. And we've taken a look at some of Manchester United's options, squad depth-wise, about how they can actually do this. Because if you're looking at it now, you've got Malacia, who can play at left-back, but he's injured at the moment, so that is an issue. You've also got Diogo Dalot, who can more than comfortably come in at left-back, very versatile full-back, and come in and fill in for Luke Shaw.
Do you think that's what they'll do? Is that the option?
It's definitely the option. I think Erik ten Hag will go with that. He's a senior player. They've just given Dalot a massive new contract as well, so that is a big vote of confidence in Dalot's ability. And Erik ten Hag has proved on many occasions that he likes Dalot, although he's currently not starting at right back because Wan-Bissaka has that place. But last season we've seen Dalot come in at left back and fill in for Luke Shaw where there has been injuries. And I think also there's Alvaro Fernandez as well.
He's a player that you waxed lyrical about in the pre-show meeting. He was on loan last season. Tell me about him. Is he a player that you can maybe feature in the first 11 for Manchester United this season?
Brilliant young player. Really good at Preston North End last year. Won their Young Player of the Year. And Ten Hag really liked him in pre-season, giving him game time, having a look at him. And actually, you probably thought, well, if Malacia is there, where is Alvaro Fernandez going to play? When is he going to play? And there's been interest from Granada, reportedly, to take him on loan. It all depends on how long the injury to Malacia is, because I think it's very clear that Dalot will probably come in, definitely for the next game against Nottingham Forest. But for me, I would very much like to see this a situation that Erik ten Hag can sort in-house and coach his way out of it. There's enough options there in the short term. The reports are suggesting that Luke Shaw is probably going to miss weeks rather than months, and then hopefully get Malacia back in that time as well. So for me, absolutely. I would like to see Alvaro Fernandez play, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
We've already talked about goalkeepers. Obviously, you sorted that out in terms of your first choice goalkeeping to sort out your backup. But if you go further through this Manchester United team, you look at midfield, you've talked ad nauseum about what Manchester United need to do, whether Ten Hag's got the style of players to facilitate his type of football. If you look at the depth there, you see you've got Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro and Mount as starters. Obviously, we know Mason Mount's out of an injury for a little while. But Van der Beek, McTominay and Eriksen as the backups, is that good enough for Manchester United?
It's an issue. It's an issue, and I think it's one that Erik Ten Hag is clearly aware of. With Mason Mount being injured as well, you'd expect Christian Eriksen potentially come in. Donny van der Beek probably should have an asterisk above that because he's looking to move away from the club and find some consistency and reignite his career again. In the first 2 games of the season, Erik Ten Hag's been a little bit reluctant to go straight to McTominay. Gary Neville was picking up on that in the Spurs game. Is he saving it for McTominay because he may get sold? Maybe trying to make a statement that he wants to move on from McTominay. The young lad, Kobe Mainoo, had a fantastic pre-season but was injured in the first couple of minutes in a pre-season friendly against Real Madrid. And we've seen from Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro and Mount that the early signs are a little bit worrying in terms of how does Ten Hag find the right balance between the two. Casemiro's look quite isolated. You've got Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount as 2 8s and leaving Casemiro as a 6, and there's been high turnovers in play. So there's a lot for Erik Ten Hag to sort out. So definitely Manchester United would need to reinforce in that midfield situation.
And do you think, looking at the first couple of games of Manchester United, we saw it a lot in the Wolves game, we saw it in the Spurs game in the second half as well. The lack of physicality might suggest that McTominay's a player that could stay at Manchester United despite the fact he's been linked to a couple of clubs this summer.
Exactly, been linked to West Ham, and it's a weird situation for Erik Ten Hag. Maybe he might be looking at an identity crisis because actually in the way he's trying to take the midfield forward, it's more technical players. You look at Mount. Good amount of money spent on him, and you let go of Fred and have a reluctance to use McTominay, but that's your physicality, that's your mobility that gets around the pitch. And if you're looking at away at Tottenham, Fred probably would have played in a game like that and have an influential role. So I definitely think there needs to be something where either McTominay stays at the football club and Erik Ten Hag uses him if Manchester United can't bring other targets. But like I said, if there is a sale of Donny van der Beek, which I know Manchester United are relying upon to be able to bring in new bodies, then there could be some movement there.
And quickly, we just look at the front line. That's probably the most fluid part of Manchester United's team. We've seen Rashford play down the middle. We've got him on the left over here. That's his best position. Would you say that Højlund coming in and maybe starting for Manchester United adds a new dynamic to Manchester United's front line?
Oh, it's the £64 million question. Not quite the 70 that's been the add-ons. We've got to wait for the add-ons because that means Manchester United will be successful and then the add-ons will come. But he's an unknown entity. He's a project striker that Ten Hag can get his teeth into. Martial, the forgotten man. You know, so many injuries, blighted with injuries. But they're looking to be the strikers. And then you're looking at Sancho and Garnacho coming in at the left wing. On the right-hand side is pretty worrying as well because Antony's form hasn't been very good at the start of this season, an indifferent first season. Pellistri potentially going out on loan and Ahmad currently injured before he was going to go out on loan. So no real recognised right winger after Antony.
There seems to be a lot of questions around this Manchester United team. Despite the fact that they've done good business currently, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. And we've got, 7 days left in the transfer window? Fingers crossed for your sake that you get some more business done to
Not just for my sake. Not just for my sake. You know, we've still got positives. Yeah. We've still got Erik Ten Hag at the helm. Yeah. And we'll be fine.
Surely he has to coach his way out of the situation. You can't go and spend money on a new left-back if you've got players in that team that can fill that role until Shaw and Malacia are back.
And the goalkeeper situation also up in the air. Manchester United are deciding between 2 keepers if Dean Henderson leaves the club. United are ready to do deals with one of Fenerbahce's Altay Bayinde or Benfica's Odysseas Vlachodimos. Crystal Palace remain in talks with United over a deal for Henderson. The ever-changing keeper situation then, Harriet. You're an expert on this now, aren't you? What's going on?
I know so much about Manchester United's goalkeeping situation. It's interesting.
Eric needs to talk to you.
Because it's like dominoes and moving parts. And it's interesting you just spoke about the squad depth in that area there. Obviously, Onana coming in, a great signing, really fits with what Ten Hag wants to do and what he wants his goalkeeper to be good at, good with the ball at his feet. De Gea departed and they needed someone to come in as that number 1. But it's that number 2 slot now that needs sorting out. It would have been Tom Heaton. He's picked up an injury. Jack Butland, his loan came to an end as well. So now they're left in a position where Dean Henderson, who has been linked with a move away all summer, is the number 2. So they're waiting to see between those 2 names you just mentioned whether they can bring one in, but they can't bring one in unless Dean Henderson goes out. But the 2 things, need to happen simultaneously, so one is reliant on another. So it's a little bit of a match-up to do both of those things, and that's why it's probably taking a little bit longer to solve a problem for Manchester United that's not that high on the priority list, finding a second-choice goalkeeper and making sure the reinforcements are in place. But hopefully, with the 7 days left in the window, they'll be able to get that one sorted.
Yeah, and as for a midfielder potentially coming in as well, they remain interested in Fiorentina's Sofiane Amrabat. Now, Amrabat was left out of Fiorentina's squad last night. We know why that was. Would he go straight into United's starting 11, do you think?
Arguably, with the way the midfield looks now, well, especially with Mason Mount out with an injury supposedly after the international break. I just spoke about it earlier there with Kwaku, that Manchester United's midfield all of a sudden looks like it lacks physicality, it lacks mobility, it lacks that little bit of grit.
It lacks identity. It lacks. I don't think they know. Ten Hag quite knows what he's going for, because we all expected this coach from Ajax who played possession football to come in and try and dominate in the ways that Arsenal and City play football. But he said in pre-season he wants them to be the best transition team in the world. He wants them to be hyper-aggressive. And so I feel like they're caught in no man's land at the moment, because Amrabat doesn't fit the profile of any of those players. He's very different to what those players are, but maybe that's what Manchester United needs.
Yeah, Amrabat will give that physicality and certainly give mobility. Good passer from deep as well. He definitely is. When he has time and space on the ball, he can make things happen. We have seen that from him from his time at Fiorentina. And he's a player that Erik ten Hag knows really well from his time at Utrecht as well. So another familiar face for Erik ten Hag, potentially.
And Manchester United are also in talks with Johnny Evans over a one-year contract. Now, Evans signed a short-term deal to cover pre-season. You signed one of those as well, Flex. Did they ask you to sign a long-term deal as well? Or?
Absolutely. It's just been done, I can confirm.
Yeah, okay.
Breaking news.
But did you see this one coming?
To be honest, when I was on tour and I saw Johnny Evans was also there,
short-term deals.
I thought he probably is going to sign for a year. And look, I think the thinking from Erik ten Hag, I imagine, is experience will be good to have around the club and the dressing room. Not going to start too many games, and he's probably quite far down the pecking list. But I don't know, from my own perspective, I just look at it and it's ironic that Manchester United have waited so long for the Phil Jones situation to be sorted, and then all of a sudden Manchester United go and bring back Johnny Evans. Now, if you look at it in that isolation, you think, surely not. What's going on there? But I think the thinking is it's a short-term solution. They probably thought Harry Maguire would leave as well, and they'll be able to bring in a younger centre-back. That didn't quite materialise. And Erik ten Hag sees something in Johnny Evans. He's a very experienced player, knows Manchester United very well, of course. It's been a long time since he's been there, and his form in a short space of time within pre-season was indifferent, I would say. It was indifferent, but ten Hag sees something there. But for me, I would just like to see Manchester United move on to the future, get the next up-and-coming young player to be able to move forward instead of looking backwards.
Right, to the WSL now, and Manchester United have turned down an offer for England goalkeeper Mary Erps from an unnamed club. The bid was a world record for a goalkeeper in the women's game. United want her to extend her deal, which has 1 year left to run. Harriet, just how much will Manchester United want to keep hold of her?
Yeah, if the world didn't know Mary Erps a couple of months ago, they certainly know her now, don't they? An incredible World Cup, won the Golden Glove there, saved a penalty in the final. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough for England, but had an incredible tournament, and people really noticed how much of a leader she was. And Manchester United, she's an absolutely vital player. She's played every single minute for 4 consecutive seasons for Manchester United, and they're approaching a season when they're playing Champions League football, and that's vital for them. They've already lost Alessia Russo in this window, again another player who shone in the World Cup, and they'll have been really sad, Manchester United fans, to lose her. So approaching a season where they are playing in that Champions League, they do need to keep key players on side, and Mary Erps is certainly one of them. You can look through all her attributes, everything she's won as well. Best FIFA women's goalkeeper earlier this year. It's an interesting one with women's contracts in that side of the game now, because the top teams now are handing out these longer-term 3-year contracts, but it's taking a little while for the rest of the league to catch up, and that does speak to the fact that the progress of the women's game is definitely coming. That is moving faster now. But players like Mary Erps deserve to have that financial security, know where they're going to be playing their football, and it's good to see the teams at the top of the WSL taking lead on that, and hopefully the rest of the league will follow, but definitely a player at Manchester United women want to keep.
And just a quick one, Manchester United, I think, need to put a stop to losing their best players,
Yeah.
Lauren
Alessia
James.
Russo is a huge loss,
Alessia
and
Russo.
I think that will have kicked them into gear, and think they need to offer these players some sense of security and make sure they're tied down, because the future is definitely there for women's football, and the WSL, the fans and the progress of it is moving at an astronomical rate.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right, before we get to the break, some news has just come into us from the Championship, and Nathan Woods has made it clear to Swansea he wants to leave the club for Southampton. However, he has not handed in a formal transfer request. Southampton's bid of £7 million plus £3 million in add-ons remains on the table for Swansea to decide on. One source has told us that the makeup of the add-ons has been revised, but the bid, worth a total of £10 million, remains the same. Next, 7 days to go in the window. We're taking a look at who needs to do what, with time running out. Welcome back to Transfer Talk. 7 days to go, 7 days for clubs to get their business done. So, who needs to do what? The team have picked out one club each. Harriet, we'll start with you. Who needs help?
Yeah, Everton have still got a little bit of work to do. If you've watched either of their first two games this season, yet to score a goal. I know it's only been 2 games, but it does speak to an issue that has been ongoing for some time, and that's the fact that they haven't managed to bring in a striker. You can look at the players they have brought in here. Ashley Young from Aston Villa on a free, loads of Premier League experience, defensive reinforcements. Danjuma and Harrison, more of a winger profile, both add to that attacking output. I think they will bring a lot to Everton's attack, but perhaps not the striker that they need. And then Chimiti, who's a lot younger, and Dyche has spoken about not wanting to put the pressure on him quite yet and to allow him some time to bed in. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, it looks like, has sustained an injury and will be on the sidelines for quite some time again. And when he's not in the team, you really notice that Everton lack that focal point. They lack that firepower and they don't manage to find the back of the net, even in games where they are creating chances. Sean Dyche has spoken as well about the fact that they are operating under tough financial constraints at the moment. They aren't going to be able to just go into the market, select who they want. So they're going to have to be clever. But it is that striker now that is absolutely vital for them. 34 goals scored across the entirety of last season, second lowest only to Wolves, and it doesn't look like that problem is getting any better heading into the new season. So yes, that's a vital one for them.
Thank you, Harriet. Quaker, you were complaining about how much Chelsea had spent, how little. See that? £12.9 million.
Yeah, I know.
Imagine how it feels to be an Everton fan.
I bet you're not gutted about that, are you? Yeah.
That's not my club. It's not
my problem. Right, who have you gone for?
I've gone for a West London rival. I've gone for Fulham. If you look at the business they've done, not enough, really. Raul Jimenez, obviously, to replace the goals lost from Alexander Mitrovic, who actually scored yesterday for Al Hilal. Calvin Bassey, great signing from Ajax. It didn't quite work out for him, but we all remember him in the Europa League for Rangers, really playing good football. So that's a great signing, one for the future as well, in terms of he's going to be there for a long time if things go well for him. Adama Traore, things haven't been amazing for Adama Traore in the Premier League. We all know about the talent, but it's just not been incredible. Haven't spent as much money as Fulham fans would like or expect. But if you look at the squad, it just needs strength in depth. You're never going to replace a player like Mitrovic completely. I think Jimenez is not the player that we saw maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But they need to reinforce that bench. They need more players in. They brought in Calvin Bassey, but another centre-back. Tim Ream did amazing last season, but he is getting up there in age. And they don't really fancy Issa Diop either. And they've been linked this whole window with Callum Hudson-Odoi, a winger who's he's lost his way at Chelsea. If he could kind of find himself at Fulham, he could be a player that's very, very effective. For Fulham's side, that are going to be struggling this season. They did very well last season, but it's been an uncertain summer. Obviously, Marcus Silva was linked with a move to Saudi Arabia. Mitrovic has already gone there. He's there. He was the top goal scorer last season. So Fulham, they didn't have a good result on the weekend either, losing 3-0 against Brentford at home. It seems like the sky's falling, but if they can get some more signings through the door, then fingers crossed for Fulham fans, they can stay in the division.
Yeah, Marco Silva has made it clear that he needs more players. He keeps saying we're not ready to compete. Flex, who else isn't ready to compete?
Yeah, I've gone for Wolves. I'm actually going to give Wolves a bit of credit, though, first off, because I know they have been made favourites to go down by many. And I just think when you look at their starting team with the 11, I think they've got a bit more quality than people give them credit for. I'm not just saying that because they gave Manchester United the runaround in the first game of the season. I genuinely do mean it, but they do, I think, still need to do some more business. Brought in Traore there, 9.5 million. Mateus Cunha, who has been electric, but probably needs some more goals from him as well. Tom King and Matt Doherty returning back to the club as well, a very, very experienced player going on to Spurs and Atletico Madrid before returning now. But I think they need some centre-backs. I mean, they've only got 3 recognised ones in Kilman. You look at Totti as well and Dawson, so some strength needed there in case there's an injury. Of course, we've been talking about Mateus Nunes. If he is to leave, then there's huge issues there. They'll need to definitely replace him. And Podence has been on the outcast, pretty much put on a transfer list, training by himself as well. So he's looking like he's going to move, so he's going to need to be replaced as well.
Right, coming up after the break, we've got the latest on Romelu Lukaku's future. Will he get a move away from Chelsea? Welcome back to Transfer Talk. Chelsea continue to seek viable exit options for striker Romelu Lukaku. The preference remains on a permanent deal, but it's understood they are now open to a straight loan or a loan with an optional obligation. That would involve a loan fee and his new club covering his wages. The development is likely to increase the number of potential suitors, and according to Sky Italy, PSG and Barcelona are also likely to show an interest in signing him. AS Roma are interested in doing a deal with Tammy Abraham out until the end of the year with injury. Kwaku, where could you realistically see him going? Where would Romelu want to go?
Roma makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. Like you mentioned, Tammy Abraham is out with a long-term injury. Obviously, we wish him the best because he was doing very, very well in his first season in Roma. The second season was not as good, but we hope he gets better. But Romelu Lukaku shows that he can play in Italian football. He can score goals in Italy. He's done that very well. He scores goals wherever he goes. Let's be honest about it. I know that he hasn't got the best PR at the moment, Lukaku. Burnt a lot of bridges in terms of what he's done at the clubs that he's played for, but he's still a striker that gives you goals. Jose Mourinho, Romelu Lukaku, that's a lethal combination. You can see him scoring a lot of goals. You can see Jose putting an arm around him. I think that's what Lukaku needs. It's not been great for him at Inter Milan, a club that he fell in love with when he originally went there. The second stint's not been as great. Obviously, we know the situation at Chelsea. Pochettino's been asked about it constantly, and it sounds like he's not in his plans, and it sounds like Chelsea need to move him on. There's only 7 days left in the transfer window. It's going to be hard to find suitors that will pay those wages. We bought him for £97.5 million, and he's going to be one of the highest paid players at the club. So to find a club that's going to pay those wages with this much time left in the transfer window, it's going to be tough, but I think Rome is a great spot for him.
I think the fact that they've opened up a loan situation, though, helps that, and they had to do that because, like you said, if you're saying that Lukaku's surplus the requirements here at Chelsea, we want to move him on, but you have to buy him, that really limits who's able to do that. So with it being able to be a loan on top of that, really are going to be a lot of suitors around the world, I think, because he needs to find a solution.
Kwaku, you said earlier that you want Chelsea to sign... I'm not going to let this go, am I? That you want them to sign another player. You haven't had enough already in this window.
Give me more. Give me more. Please, sir, can I have some more?
But, Harriet, is it a goal scorer they need?
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we've been speaking all season long, and all window long, I should say, about Chelsea and all the players they bring in, but it still feels like they're lacking that real goal threat and firepower up front. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but the striker problem has been ongoing. The last player to score 20 goals for Chelsea was Costa back in 2016-17 season. No player has scored more than 20 since then. So it does feel like it's a recurring theme and something that we keep coming back to. They've had a little bit of bad luck, and Kudu looked like he was going to have a very promising season, looked very good in pre-season, is now out with an injury. Jackson, it remains to be seen whether he's able to hit those heights. He looks really promising. I think he's a very good talent with a lot of potential. Will he register those numbers, though, in terms of goals? I'm not entirely sure. If you think about the West Ham game, Chelsea had 76% possession in that game, and they created chances. That's been a theme for them, hasn't it, Kwaku? Yeah. They've created chances, but just finding the end result of those chances has been a recurring problem. So take Lukaku back. Why don't you take it?
It's there, it's yours.
You don't know what you've got until it's gone.
I want to see a Chelsea striker own it, though. I've gone on about this. All my friends tell me to just shut up about it. I want to see a Chelsea striker own it and take penalties. Chelsea aside, with the players that we've got, we win so many penalties per season. And I'm seeing Enzo Fernandez stepping up to take it. If you're Nicholas Jackson, go and own being a Chelsea striker. Go and add 8-9 goals to your tally per season. Jorginho was our top goal scorer a couple of seasons ago, and that was all penalties. If you're a Chelsea striker and you want to break this curse of Chelsea strikers, own being a Chelsea striker, take penalties, and really, really earn that shirt. Because I feel like with Chelsea strikers in recent memory, it's been passive. If you look at Morata, you look at Torres, you look at Timo Werner, players that had their moments in a Chelsea shirt, but haven't really owned being a Chelsea striker. I think Nicholas Jackson is for real, and I want to see him own it.
Is that a mentality thing then? If you're naming all these players that have played in the same team, and some of whom have gone elsewhere and played really well and registered those numbers, is it a style thing? Is it a system thing? Or is it a mentality? And they were thinking, he must be successful at Chelsea. He will be the one to break that curse, but it's not.
Cast your mind back to when we brought in Lukaku. It was off the back of winning the Champions League. Chelsea were most people's favourites to win the Premier League that following season. With Lukaku up top, he started the season on fire at Arsenal. He absolutely bullied their defenders. You see him on the screen there. And it's one of the biggest shames for Chelsea because obviously we brought him in as a kid, as a 16-year-old. Didn't quite work out. Went out elsewhere and found his way and scored loads of goals. Brought him back in, did an incredible intro video for him, allowed me to reintroduce myself, and he did reintroduce himself.
You give him big music. That is Jay-Z status. You gave him Jay-Z status.
We did, and it's not happened for Romelu Lukaku. It's a big shame because he, like you say, he fits the mould of a Hasselbank, of a Costa, of a Drogba, but it just hasn't worked out for him, unfortunately.
Looking forward to the game later? You're already this stressed.
He's nervous.
I'm nervous.
I feel the nervous energy.
You feel that energy coming out the longer the hour's gone on.
Right, let's move on then, shall we, to West Ham. And technical director Tim Steidten is in Bulgaria, finalising a move for Ajax midfielder Mohammed Kudu. Kudu scored a hat-trick in Ajax's Europa League playoff victory at Ludogorets last night. If a deal can be fully agreed, Steidten and Kudu will fly to London so the player can have a medical and sign off on a 5-year contract. Still work to do on the deal, but a willingness from all parties to get it done. Kwaku, he's such a versatile player, isn't he? Yeah. Where would he fit into this West Ham team?
So he can play all across the front line. He's left-footed, which is it's rare these days. That's why he was linked with so many clubs. Chelsea need a left-footed attacker. So do Arsenal to an extent. But the fact that West Ham look like they're going to land this deal speaks volumes about what West Ham have done over the last 2 or 3 years. Obviously won the Conference League last year, a couple of European finishes as well in the league. But he can play as a false 9, he can play on the right, he can play on the left, he can play as a number 10 as well. For Ghana during the World Cup, he played a little bit deeper as a number 8. And so David Moyes will find a way to utilise him to the best of his abilities. And when you look at this West Ham squad that they're building, you look at Jared Bowen, you look at Ben Rama, Mikel Antonio is always effective. He will slot in Mohammed Kudus. He's a player that's got Champions League experience and is going to come and play for West Ham. That's a huge coup
Does he
for the
fit
club.
Moyes' style, do you think?
I think Moyes will adapt his style slightly, and I think that there's been a call from West Ham fans to adapt that style. But he's a player that's got industry and he'll work hard for the team. I heard Anton Ferdinand talk about it in terms of Edson Alvarez. He goes, at West Ham, the DNA is run first, play later. Yeah. And I think that's what Mohammed Kudus does. He's very energetic. He's got abundance of energy and just enthusiasm for the game. And I think if West Ham secure this deal, then they've got a great player who will light up the Premier League.
Mm-hmm. And they are also looking at alternative targets to Youssef En-Nesyri. They've been in talks with Sevilla, but they've been unable to agree a deal for the Morocco forward. Flex, is it a necessity that they find another option, or can they do without?
Absolutely. They need a striker. It always falls back to Antonio, who I've got massive respect for. So a real bad one if they can't get him over the line, but they have to definitely build upon a positive transfer window with getting a number 9.
Right, guys, that's all we have time for, sadly. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend.
What we've learned is he wants more.
He wants more. Kwaku wants more. You'll get more. But on Monday, Good Morning Transfers is back at 9 a.m. Then Transfer Talk is here at the later time of 1 o'clock on Monday. And before that, the Transfer Show returns tonight at 5 o'clock. And at 7 o'clock, there's a special international edition of the Transfer Show with Dharma Chef, Florian Pettenberg and Gianluca Di Marzio. Then Total Football is next. More Premier League managers to come, including Jurgen Klopp, Mikel Arteta and Ange Postecoglou. Stay with us.